Joining us now, our dear friend from Prime Video, the great Andrew Whitworth. Good to see you, Andrew. How are you, sir?
Whit.
What's going
What's
on,
going on, brother?
What's up, Whit? How you doing?
I'm good, baby. It's the off season. I'm great.
It's no such thing. How dare you? Never. Never. The Rams just made a trade. And hold on a second.
Point.
Hold on a minute.
It never stops.
And it's nonstop. It's nonstop. Sean's talking. Do we have that soundbite? Because I think Sean said something along the lines of the door's not closed on Cooper Kupp. Do we have that? Hit it.
I think I would never speak in absolutes, but I do think let's gather all the information. We'll take it a day at a time, and we'll kind of see what the next steps entail.
All right, you're fluent in McVay, right, Andrew? You can be our McVay interpreter. What do I make of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think he knows better that in this league anything can happen, and so I think at the end of the day they will end up separating, and Cooper will end up somewhere else, but. Man, listen, if there's anything we've learned in the recent years with the Rams is they are willing to do anything and everything as it comes up. And so you never really can rule out anything with them.
Well, I mean, it did, from what I heard, it got dicey at some point last week about Stafford and the Rams. Yeah. And obviously them coming together makes sense for everybody involved, in my estimation. But it got close, right, Andrew? Last week?
Yeah, I mean, when you have to go back though to last year, if you think about it, Rich. I mean, this was a situation all offseason long. There was kind of a discussion of Stafford's contract and what was going to make Matthew happy and feel like he was appreciated as a Los Angeles Ram and what worked out for them. And so I think if you remember, even it came up to the first day of training camp. There was a little bit of like, is Matthew here and why there's a meeting going on and they're trying to figure it out. And so I think when you go through a year like that and you come to an agreement, there's no question the Los Angeles Rams want Matthew Stafford as their quarterback. That was never the issue. It's just trying to find out what makes him happy, feel like he's being appreciated, he's making the money he wants to make, but they can also go chase the opportunity to play in a Super Bowl. And so when you look at how this year ended, in Philly, really coming down to the last snap of the game and with a chance to win that game and host the NFC Championship. They want to be together, but it's still, hey, after last year, you weren't happy. Let's figure out what your value is. And I think that's why when people kind of question, well, why are they letting him talk to other teams and those kind of things is, you can assume a lot in this league, Rich, but sometimes until you go reach out to these teams and find out what are they willing to give up, what would the draft compensation be, what would the contract be, and do those things marry to something that's really what's more important to you is to go make that money, or do you want to stay here, be a Los Angeles Ram, and continue to chase that championship with Sean McVay? And at the end of the day, I think that once they did all those things and realized, what, the best option is, we want to stay together. We want Matthew Stafford as our quarterback. There's zero question about that. And now they're happy, they're together, and I'm sure Sean's sleeping a whole lot better, and I bet you Matthew is as well.
Yeah, because, listen, I understand the Giants and the Raiders might have given Stafford more on the table than the Rams, but outside of that, financially, there's nothing else, in which they could beat the Rams for Matthew for this year and potentially beyond if for any guy who's envisioning an end-of-career scenario. I mean, last year, Andrew, they came. Take a look at the playoffs. They came as the closest of any team to keep the Eagles from a parade than anybody else at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, we always can go back and say what ifs, but they're one play there at the end of the game where we probably have a better plan and protection there, a little bit of a mistake there at the end of the game, and you let Jalen Carter disrupt the play, but Tyler Higbee's wide open, and who's to say he's not going to have a chance to score since the defender fell down? So, yeah, they're that close. So I don't think this was about, hey, competitively, is there any world where we're better without Matthew Stafford? I don't think that was ever brought up in this question. I think that the real decision was, is he happy to be here? Is this contract that we can offer him and what we feel like we can do and still go compete at a really high level again next year? Because the reality is this, in the playoffs, Rich, you can be playing really good football and you can have success, but for the year long to get there, they needed to be better. I mean, that was a year where the start was bad. It was another consecutive year where the start off of the season's bad. They got to go on a big run to make the playoffs. I think for them, it's, hey, we got a young nucleus of talent that we've drafted really well the last couple of years. Matthew, what's that number that you're comfortable, you're happy, you want to be a Ram, a Super Bowl is what's on your mind, and then how do we put pieces around you? Because I think you would argue in that game in Philly, if they play a little better around Matthew Stafford, they win that game. Matthew played at what he does. And when his best is required, he is always there. In these big moments, it's like he loves it. And so I think in their mind, it's like, hey, what's the contract? Makes you happy. And then we can go put the pieces around you. And now we feel like we're contenders again.
Andrew Whitworth here on the Rich Eisen Show. We have not spoken since the Super Bowl. What is your assessment about the Chiefs' line and their ability to keep this thing, right back on track after what we saw, what the Eagles did to them, Andrew?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they really decide to do with the offensive line. I mean, obviously at the tackle position, over the last couple of years, they've had some up and down play there. Their young pick didn't really work out at the beginning of the season. Then it was kind of find out who can play left tackle. And I was concerned with Joe Thuney continuing to have to be the left tackle just because of a game like that. I mean, you really think of what the Chiefs have been around Mahomes, is that interior three has been one of the best interior threes in the league when you really put all them together and Thuney's playing his normal left guard spot. So for them to continue to have to move him out there, you're just a little weaker. And when you play a great defensive line like this, it's going to show up more often. And so I think for them, it's getting Thuney back to left guard. And then what's our answer? Can our young draft pick come up and play this position? Is Kingsley going to be able to be that guy at left tackle? Or is there a situation where we've got to say Juwan Taylor's got to move to left and we got to figure out the answer at right? There's got to be an investment there, because if you really look at their seasons, Rich, it's like they get themselves to the Super Bowl, and the only ones that you can think of that, all right, why did they lose the Super Bowl? Against Tampa, it was they had two tackles that got injured. They were great football players right before the Super Bowl. They were without their left and right tackle in the game. And in this game, the offensive line's getting whipped, and they don't have much of a chance to protect Mahomes. So when they protect Mahomes, they are a really tough team to beat. And so that's got to be their top priority right now.
Well, and the team that took the first step forward closer to the Eagles was the team that the Eagles destroyed prior to destroying the Chiefs in Washington by acquiring Deebo Samuel. How much closer in your mind did the Commanders get with that move?
Well, I'll tell you this, Rich. I don't know if anybody's happier than Sean McVay and the Rams for this move as well, because Deebo Samuel's the absolute Rams killer. That is for sure. He has seemed to be the guy that they could never stop in these big games against the Niners. So I think when you talk about getting Stafford back, getting Alaric Jackson under contract, their young left tackle, and now Deebo Samuel's out of the division, I don't know if the Rams could be any happier about that move. But for the Commanders, I think he fits great. I mean, what he does and the way that offense is really spread out, and they love to get the ball out of Jaden's hands. Like, I think Deebo is going to be a great answer for them. His ability with screens and, after they catch, to get those extra yards. If you really think of how they know huddle and up tempo, he should be a great answer for them. And I think something that's really going to help them when you think about how the Commanders move forward, because one of the things they did really well is their investment in kind of veteran pieces last offseason. They didn't make these crazy splash moves, but they got a lot of guys that came in and were really productive, into their career type guys who just came out in their production, their play, their ability to stay healthy. That's what made a difference for them. And they've got to look to renew that this season. I think Deebo is going to be a part of that answer.
Yeah, and then let's return to the Rams thing. Do you think the Niners window is closing? What do you think? Seriously, Andrew?
Listen, I'm never going against Kyle Shanahan, and as long as Trent Williams is there, playing, I also think that they've got something they're going to build that entire offensive around, and the play he has, he's got to be healthy. And then really, I think Purdy continued to show strides last season. I think when people say, all right, did he have all his weapons all year? How many NFL offenses are real productive when all their talent's not healthy? But I thought he showed strides of really playing true, just quarterback position, not as much as, hey, we can run the ball against everybody and we can hit these play actions and all these things off of it. He had to play a lot of real quarterbacks, sitting back there making decisions. I think he showed a lot of growth there. They're going to take care of him, but the model's going to change, Rich. This model has been all this talent they had, continuing to kind of plug and play a quarterback who can play in Shanahan's system. But as soon as they pay Purdy, this whole thing flips. And it starts to become, who are we actually able to afford to keep around here? You got George Kittle's contracts coming up in a year or so, a couple other guys that they're going to have to try and figure out. Trent's not going to be able to play forever. So they've got to have a really good vision for what the next version of what the San Francisco 49ers look like. If you talk about the Rams, that's one of the things they've seemed to do really well. People thought after they went all for it and won it in 21, reloaded in 22 and failed, it's like, all right, now there's no chance they're going to be good for a really long time. But they reloaded reloaded and came up with a new version of how they're going to be successful. And you got to see the Niners figure that out.
And again, I know you don't speak for Matthew. We're going to get him on hopefully at some point, and I'll ask him, how much long do you think this is another year-to-year thing with the Rams, or you think Matthew is going to stay, that they're going to figure out a way to just like end-of-career scenario for Stafford is going to be right here in Southern California? Andrew, what do you think?
Yeah, I would imagine this probably solidifies that it's going to be here or nowhere else. I mean, I know that Matthew and Kelly love living here. You know, they've obviously embraced the community and a lot of things they do, and they enjoy it. I enjoy playing some golf with him, so I hope he's not going anywhere. I don't want to lose my golf buddy. But, you know, also, I think when you really look at it last year, how things kind of went down, you come back here, and I think his kind of message to them, and that's one of the reasons this scenario was kind of difficult to figure out, has kind of been it's a year-to-year thing. I mean, the guy's obviously made a ton of money. He's won his Super Bowl. He's had a Hall of Fame career, in my opinion. And, you know, I think that for him, it's just figuring out, man, how much do I really want to go chase that next championship? Because that's really the only thing left to add to his legacy, is if he could possibly go get that second one. And so I think for him, it's going to be a year-to-year thing. And I think that's why the Rams are comfortable living in that world, is if this guy, who's one of the best talents at that position in the world, wants to keep coming back, we want to keep trying to figure out how to do that for one more year. But it's got to be in a way that we can continue to build the team around him for when he makes that exit. We're prepared and we're built talent-wise that a young quarterback or the next guy could come in and we still have a chance to be competitive.
All right. So a couple more minutes left with Andrew Whitworth here on the Rich Eisen Show. The Tush Push, the Packers put together a proposal, apparently, to be voted on later this month, apparently, to ban it. You hear that and you think what, Andrew?
You know, I don't see the reason to ban it. I think it's an awesome play, and obviously the Eagles, you know, are the example for it in every way possible. But I do see that where there's a conflict of interest, just in this mentality of when I was in the league, Rich, and we were on field goals, and Ray Lewis would get behind Haloti Ngata, or, you know, Terrell Suggs would push Haloti Ngata through on a field goal. It was one of the worst downs of your entire life, being able to take on those big monsters. And so I can see where there's a little bit of, that's a little hypocritical. Like, why have we taken this away from the defense, but on offense, you're allowed to push? So to me, like, you could do all these sneaks, you could do all the stuff you want. If you just eliminated the pusher, I think that's the only thing that people have any argument about. And I don't know that would be some, oh man, now you've taken away their play. They can still line up in the same formations, do everything they do. They're just not allowed to push on the quarterback with a running back or something. So I think that wouldn't change it that much. So I don't think that I would really be emotional either way of it. I could understand that if the defense can't do it, the offense shouldn't be able to do it as well. And I could also see where some teams say, hey, is it really that worth it to try to eliminate this play? You know, they don't care that much and move on.
Well, I mean, Schlereth said that last week when he was on with Susie, when I was at the Combine, that if the defense can't do it, then why should the offense?
It was a nightmare, Rich.
You know?
Oh, man, it was the worst down of your life. I mean,
right.
Every time you got those guys line up behind each other, you know, you just know the back of my head's going to hit the grass. It's just how long is it going to take for it to get there? And so you just hold on for dear life, and those were not fun downs. So I can imagine defenders feel that way as well.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Jones was lined up perpendicular.
He's trying to get sideways, underneath.
Or
I mean, he's trying to figure out what position he can get in.
He was perpendicular to Hurts. I mean, he was parallel to the line of scrimmage trying to figure this thing out. And so that I can understand. If the defense isn't allowed to do it, then why should the offense? But otherwise, it does sound like we can't stop it. So the only way to stop it is to legislate against it. That's the only way I took it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's what I mean. So if the defender said, all right, if that's not only on a field goal thing, if we line up the next time and we all stand, you know, behind each other and try to push each other, you know, the league's going to come in and say, oh, you're not allowed to do that because that's a defensive, you know, a down that a defender can't do it. So why can the offense do it? And I think that I can understand that argument about it. And that's the part I do agree with, that if a defense can't use that as their game plan to stop it, then why can the offense? And so I think that that's really the issue that kind of comes up, is that it feels like something that's a little hypocritical, that you're not allowing the defense to do something the offense can do.
All right, so let me finish up here with Andrew Whitworth of Amazon Prime Video's Thursday Night Football and the Fitz and Wit podcast every single Tuesday. Andrew Whitworth and Ryan Fitzpatrick, a highly entertaining pod everyone should go get. I'm speaking to somebody who went from the state of Ohio to another spot and won a championship after not having much of a chance to win one in Ohio, with all due respect. And Myles Garrett appears to fit that bill right now. Trying to find his Rams, trying to find his 2.0, his second team to try and win one. And it seems like the Browns are not interested at all in this scenario. What would you counsel Myles Garrett to do next, Andrew Whitworth?
I think really when you look at these situations, it makes me think a little bit of Carson Palmer as well. You think of in 2011 when he really refused to come back to the Bengals and had said that he just didn't feel like they were ever going to put themselves in a position for him to really have a chance at a Super Bowl. And he refused to go back there. And I think that it's one of those things that if you're going to say that that's it and this is your plan for Myles, he's got to be willing to dig his feet in and just not show up. And an unfortunate, situation there. I hate it when these kind of situations come up because I think at the end of the day, I think Tomlin always says it, you never want prisoners. And so you want volunteers. And so I think that really, to me, it's one of those where I think Cleveland's got to be honest with themselves, and I wish this is how it worked, but what we've really provided him and really how things have gone here and decisions that have been made. I can understand an all-world football player saying, hey man, I want the chance to go have success. And again, we have done things that continue to put us in a situation where we're not getting there. So you got to let him go, in my opinion. And what is that compensation? What does it look like? I just think when you do right by people and you're accountable and you say, hey, you know what? We can own up for our end of it. It ends up in a good thing for everybody. And so there's a chance here when you look at the Deshaun Watson situation and really where they're at contractually, unless you think you're a Super Bowl team, which I don't think anybody would say they are, why not use this as an opportunity of how else are we going to improve our roster? How else are we going to get out of the hole we've dug ourselves, but to acquire a lot of draft capital and move on? And so for Myles, I think it's digging your feet in and saying, you know what, if his heart really believes that he needs to go somewhere else and he's not going to be his best self every day showing up bitter in this building, then you know what, go forward with it. And for Cleveland, I think you got to really look at yourself and go, hey, maybe this is the only way we get out of the hole we've dug ourselves, is by trading him, getting some draft capital, and trying to flip this entire thing as fast as possible.
He is the only one on the team that you can get multiple ones for. That's for sure.
That's it. And look at their contract situation with the cap and everything else and what they've done with Deshaun's contract. I mean, this may be their only out. And so I know they're saying they don't want to do it, but how else are you going to get this roster back to where it should be? And I think people, honestly, I don't think people will be in arms about it, because I think they're going to understand like Myles Garrett's frustration, because I think every Cleveland Brown fan probably has the same exact frustration.
You're the man, Andrew. I love having you on. As always, you're one of my favorites, and I'm not just saying that because you're listening to me. And you're always truthful, which means my final question is, when you play Stafford, who gets the strokes? Who gets the candy? You versus Stafford and golf.
You know what? Here's the crazy thing about Stafford. He is such a freak athlete. He just hops right out of football season, and he's just a, single digit handicap. So we're both probably anywhere from like a 4 to 6 handicap. So we play pretty even most of the time. No strokes. I usually send him a text like that kind of right before the playoffs start. Like, hey, don't think you're going to walk out to Bel Air and I'm going to be handing you strokes. Like, just go ahead and lock it in and know that we're playing heads up golf whenever this thing's over. So we usually play heads up. He's a really good player. That's for sure.
Is Al out there with you too? Since you mentioned the country club?
We catch Al in the lunchroom. You know what I mean? Al, he plays a little longer round of golf than we do. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah, his rounds take a little bit longer than ours.
Right. Okay. All right. I hear you.
I could probably get 2 trips around and catch Al on the back at the second 18. But no, listen, Al's the man. So that's actually something I look forward to the most when I get back out there with Al. He's the best. I got to link him and Puka up. I mean, we've been waiting. The dinner's coming. Okay. We're going to do it soon. 2 non-veggie eaters. Puka's a no-veggie guy too. So long lost best friends.
Right? Puka's never.
Yeah, long lost best friends.
Okay.
They're both really jacked up about it. It's going to happen soon. I can't wait. It's going to be a great dinner. That's for sure.
Al Michaels and Puka Nacua. Who knew that was the thing in common? Fantastic. You're the best, Andrew. We'll chat again soon, bud.
Appreciate it, brother.
You got it. Right back at you. That's Andrew Whitworth. Everybody check out his pod with Ryan Fitzpatrick every single Tuesday. That's awesome. Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.